Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Now today we are talking about SMSL A300. It's a small Class D amp that could. And I've been sitting on this review for longer than a week, but I got some sort of cold and I was waiting for that to pass. So if you think that I sound nasal, it's because I probably still do. But back to the A300, it's another variation of small Class D amp coming at just $195, basically $200 US. And as many other models coming at this similar price, it also uses German-made Infineon Class D modules. And this one is claiming to have a really good power that's around 85 watts into 8 ohms. And that's basically doubled into 160 into 4 ohms, which is a very decent amount of power even for bigger amps, let alone for something this small. And I'm just quickly going to mention a few features here. So if we look at the back of the unit, we can see two analog inputs. Both are RCAs, meaning single-ended. If you want to use balanced inputs, this amp doesn't have those, but it's $200 US unit. I cannot hold that against it. And then of course there are speaker binding posts, and these are made out of plastic, but they're not too small as some previous SMSL or Topping amps featured. These are a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to operate in my opinion. But we are not done yet. There are digital inputs in form of USB and Bluetooth antenna. So yeah, you can hook this directly to your PC or connect it to your phone using Bluetooth. And then we have a dedicated sub output. And this one is actually very interesting because SMSL incorporated setting, it's fairly simple one, but still definitely points for doing that in such a low priced model. It's a high pass filter basically. And that means that if you enable it, only higher frequencies, I'll put that on the screen, I forgot where is the cutoff frequency, will be sent on speaker binding posts to your speakers, while only lower frequencies will be sent through subwoofer output to your sub. And this is really nice option for sub integration, and admittedly you do not have much of freedom in choosing this cutoff frequency. But again, at this price point, I feel they deserve to be praised for having it at all, and not to be scolded for not being more feature-packed. And lastly, if you want to do that, you can make this unit into a mono block. So if you enable so-called BTL mode, you can basically turn this unit into a mono amplifier and then get a second one to power the other speaker, so two mono amplifiers, which increases your power significantly, basically by 2. And I don't have 2 of these, so I haven't tried that functionality, but it's a nice option to have if you maybe wish to do some sort of upgrade, or you feel that you want to try how would more power sound like in the future. Other than that, SMSL included few really neat features that they now normally include in their amps. And that's tone controls, so you can adjust treble and bass, but you also have several EQ settings, and some of them are not just a sheer combination of these two, treble and bass. One of them is called SDB, I think, and it definitely does something. It's like some sort of DSP processing to make sound even punchier and more forceful and in your face, and some people really like it. But you can play with that for yourself and find out if you like some sort of EQ or not. I really liked the sound without any sort of meddling with these options, because that way I feel it's probably the most transparent. And you do get a remote with this unit. It's small, but it's fully functional. But if you want, you can also use these front panel controls, including 3 buttons and this wheel. At least on my unit, it has a really nice, smooth, but this clicky feel, and I like it. Now let's talk sound. Now, I tried this amp with several different speakers, including one of my favorites, Kef LS50s, that are not an easy load with 85 dB sensitivity. And I'm happy to say that A300 does sound punchy and powerful, as these watt numbers would suggest. On its own, isolated, I felt it sounds really transparent and mostly neutral. I did not notice any sort of emphasis on bass line, on highs, or anything like that. That said, it does have that signature Class D type of sound, meaning that the bass line is grippy, it's speedy, it has a lot of agility and control, but it's probably not the warmer sounding one. If you like your bass line to be really warm and lush, this is not it. And same goes for the rest of the spectrum too. Mid-range, highly revealing. Texture of a tone is so easily noticeable, edges are clean and crisp, and highs are truly well extended. Even the soundstage is quite good. This can develop really decently wide soundstage, and it's well layered. You can easily pinpoint where is every instrument, where is vocal, and if there is some empty room between them. And at all times while listening to it, I was thinking like, man, if this type of sound is affordable for $200 US, why the hell am I using expensive preamp and amp, and we all go searching for, I don't know, some magic with tube preamps and whatnot? But to completely answer that, I actually had to take this SMSL and compare it directly to those amps. I first started with maybe a direct competitor from the SMSL house. It's SMSL DA-9, a really capable small amp that I don't have with me at the moment, but I compared them directly. And guys, you should know that DA-9 is not a slouch. It's a really decent sounding integrated amp. At the moment I first reviewed it, I was amazed by how that little amp actually sounds good for that amount of money. And A300 is even slightly cheaper. It comes with these digital inputs, and it sounds better. It simply sounds more engaging, cleaner, and leading instruments and vocals are more forward. They just seem cleaner and crisper and more present. It's not like artificially sharpened compared to DA-9. It's just cleaner and more present and slightly more energetic. And between these two, I would definitely give an easy win to A300. And then I did not have AO200. That's another SMSL amp. They do have a lot of these. But between DA-9 and AO200, that I have both at one moment, I slightly preferred DA-9. AO200 was warmer in the bass and more forward, more aggressive, but it was a little bit biting at my ears and annoying me with a little bit of peskiness and sibilance in the upper mid-range. DA-9 was smoother sounding in my opinion, and I liked that. If I was choosing for myself, I would rather keep DA-9 than AO200. But with A300, I feel that it's having the best of both of these, and it's even besting them in basically all areas slightly. It feels cleaner, crisper, and it layers better than DA-9. It has this energetic, punchy forward sound of AO200, but it doesn't sound as sharp in the upper mid-range as AO200, and I feel that it's slightly more refined. That soundstage is slightly better layered and composed and arranged. And all of that for $200. Now I'm talking about analog inputs. I'm comparing analog inputs on all of these. Digital input is usable. This internal DAC is usable, it's decent. But you should know that the analog stage, meaning the amp itself, is good enough that it does deserve a better external DAC. Next, I compared it to Topping PA5. And this one is really decent, small, transparent sounding amp. But if you remember, if you have seen my review, I've mentioned that it is slightly drier in the mid-range, and that in my opinion it shouldn't be mixed with kinda brightish and dryish sounding speakers. That was the only complaint I had about it. And when I compared them directly, A300 basically has the same level of transparency and detail retrieval, but it does sound fuller, more energetic and juicier in the mid-range than PA5. PA5 is a little bit more laid back, and its mid-range sounds kind of thinner and leaner, which when you combine with this present upper mid-range means slightly drier presentation. This one has all of the qualities of PA9, PA5, but adds a little bit of juice, a little bit of body, and it just sounds healthier to my ears. A body of a tone sounds more natural and more present and beefier. And with that, I can definitely say that this sounds embarrassingly good. Not embarrassingly good for SMSL, but maybe for some other brands. And if you are coming from some older Class AB amp at this price range, 2, 3, 4, even $500, that you've maybe bought like 10 years ago, you would probably be smitten by the level of transparency and detail retrieval and just clean, crisp sound that this amp can provide. That said, if you tuned your system and accommodated your ears to that sort of, I have to say, warmer but definitely muddier sound of cheap Class AB amps, this at first might sound overly dry and analytical to you. And that's a reality that I wanted to mention because we cannot escape from it. So for example, I've took this into a system that was using quite old NAD C3020 BEE Class AB amp. And when we inserted this one, clarity-wise and soundstage-wise, it basically decimated the NAD. But the owner said like, I can hear this is better, but... And the owner commented that he can hear this is better in most ways, but it still sounds unsubstantial and kinda lean to his ears. And the reason for that is because he basically adopted his whole system to that warm but muddy sounding amp. And he uses small monitor audio bronze speakers that are brighter and leaner sounding. He also uses Topping E30 DAC that is again brighter and leaner sounding. Together with that kinda muddy sounding NAD, that sounds tonally correct, but it's also not resolving, not really dynamic. It cannot layer and pinpoint things. This does that much better, but it's tonally not completely the right choice for the rest of his system. And I just wanted to put that bit into this review because I want you to know what to expect from this. It's a mighty good sounding amp, but if you accommodated the whole system to something completely different sounding, it might sound a little bit leaner and drier to you in your system and to your ears. That said, if you're currently on the market for a whole new budget setup, I would definitely choose to build a system around this unit. Just by avoiding bright and lean sounding sources and speakers, this can be a mighty heart of a budget hi-fi setup. And even when I put it directly against my current combination of Acoustic Invader preamp and power amp, it's a mighty good sounding combo. This, okay, it was not as good, not as full and lush and mighty sounding, but it really did not embarrass itself. Clarity was there, details were there, and it just shows how much we pay for every advancement in this hobby. Because, I don't know, we are crazy, we are audiophiles. But if you still have your sanity and you're not after the last 20% of quality that you have to pay 5 times the price, this is a damn good budget integrated amp. By the way, SMSL calls it power amp. And SMSL and Topping, please, this is a teachable moment. This is not a power amp. It has line inputs. It even has digital inputs. It has volume control, tone controls, EQ and some sort of DSP even, subwoofer integration. It's not a power amp, it's an integrated amp. I'm sorry, but I'll just have to repeat this until they stop calling their units power amps. Because we already know what a power amp is. And it doesn't have any controls, it doesn't have anything. All of that is in the preamp, and the power amp does nothing except amplifying and following commands of preamp that you do everything else on. So SMSL, please learn something here. You cannot keep making these good sounding products and keep embarrassing yourself but not knowing the basics. Or just deliberately misclassifying your products for I don't know why. Don't do it. Be better. Be good, SMSL. And that would be all for today, guys. I hope you liked it, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron too, because that enables me to get more of the equipment that you ask for a review and do more comparisons and everything. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.